Holy shit, that started fast.
Hey, everybody out there, welcome to Zero Reserve. This is Triple H and the Mongoose bringing you some hot throne action.
What the fuck is going on here?
The first.
This is the 0th episode of Zero Reserve.
Wait,
Is
we
this
lost
music
the
going to
zero.
go on for literally the entire time, or?
Well, welcome to episode 2 of Zero Reserve.
Is it-
today? Go ahead.
I was going to say, is it just me, or did it feel like at times that music just was like going faster than it usually does? I don't know.
I don't think that I caught that. I've listened to that intro lots and lots of times.
You're saying that you are like 100 of the 120 views?
No. I've
On
listened
that
to it
video.
locally.
Oh, okay.
I'm not hopping over to YouTube for this. Maybe
Yeah.
I should though, right?
That's far too extra.
So
I'm
today
probably
we've got
100.
you got the 100.
Yeah, I
Nice.
probably have the
appreciate
100.
that. Yeah. Appreciate that, Francis. So as you guys can hear, we've got a small podcast today. It's me, Alejandro, Alex, and Francis, the reigning, defending heavyweight champion of the world. Francis,
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh my god.
Does
Yeah.
it feel real? Does it feel real yet?
No, it doesn't.
What else is he gonna say?
Yeah,
He
so
knew it.
it's
He knew he was gonna
pretty
crush it.
insane, man. It's pretty insane. So if you guys know me, which probably most of you don't, I don't get to go to many big tournaments. So just going to a big tournament like that and making it all the way feels unreal.
Yeah, I mean, and everybody that knew you, I think, was super excited to just see you keep going. So it was definitely a pleasure to watch on my side too.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we tell the listeners, a little bit more about you, since like you said, you don't get out too often in the Thrones world.
Yeah, introduce yourself, Francis.
Okay, so basically I started playing when 2.0 was released, and first I just wanted to get into the game casually. And when I bought the first core set, there was a business card on the back of the box, and it was directing people to the Beyond the Wall podcast that was hosted by Alex Hines and Darknage back when the game released.
Yeah, I remember him saying that he was going to do this. It's such a savvy move.
Yeah, so and there was a link to the Facebook group where I'm from in Quebec City, so I joined. There's only another new guy that joined as well, so we planned for a date to meet up to learn more about the game. And Alex taught us the game, and I just dove right into the game, bought 2 more core sets, and I never thought I would play any competitive events. And then at one point, Alex just said, there's a tournament in Montreal. You want to make the drive? It's 2 hours and a half. I'm saying, why not? So we made the drive. I lose to my first game to the eventual champion, who didn't lose at all day long. Sorry, and just fell in love with the game and kept going up to the worlds that just passed us in February. So that's how it started.
Yeah, Francis and I have a really interesting way of having met. I think I was playing on Iron Throne some late night, and I ran into this guy out of your mind who was playing. I think you were playing Dark Cohort, right?
Dark Cohort back then, yeah.
And he was playing like an interesting build, and he didn't make any mistakes. And so after the game, I was chatting with him, and I was like, who are you? I don't know. I don't want to be offensive and say that I hadn't heard of you, but like at first I thought you were like a Smurf account for somebody else. I was like pretty interested in like who this Smurf account belonged to, And then you're like, no, my name is Francis. I'm from Canada. And I was like, oh shit, that's cool.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, so I've always been attracted to Targ, so which is one of the main reasons I wanted to play them at World, and they were good. But yeah, I've never got to play any events. I went to two tournaments in the US. Other than that, it's been Canadian nationals, and I've not always done well. I finished last this year, so it's an incredible way to end the Thrones official Thrones career.
yeah, yeah, and not only that, but we started talking after that because like the lobby crashed, and you found me on Facebook, so we've been chatting ever since.
Yeah,
That Target decks, and then with the World Cup, we talked like every day. When you were on Team Canada and I was on Team US, but we talked all the time about the matchups that you were going to go into, the matchups that I was going to go into, the full team matchups for each one. Just super interested in everything World Cup. So I was happy to have somebody else to talk to about it.
yeah,
Um,
and the Targ Sea of Blood was a project of mine before the box. Like you said, for the World Cup, that's what I was playing. So it was fun to get all the cards that released in the box, even if most people didn't like Sea of Blood. It was still the right choice to make, and it paid off.
yeah, yeah. Let's talk a little bit of that about that because you were playing the deck before the Targ box, so obviously they didn't have Womb,
Yeah,
um, nor a bunch of other cards. And you were talking the deck up so much and crushing the World Cup, right? That it's mostly why I played Targ C at Stalik, even though I eventually just went 5-3 and didn't make the cut. But um, yeah, I mean the deck was good back then, and then they gave it some really, really, really ridiculous pieces too, right?
yeah, exactly. Like you said, the deck was really good before. It's just people didn't deck against it, so it was probably not as good, not as consistent. But since people were not ready for it, it was better in the sense where you didn't have to see barring the gates all the time. You didn't have all those counters to jumping effects, so it was pretty consistent. But it's a much different build where I had 8 to 10 attachments in the first version. It was abusing gifts to get all the attachments needed and Voltron 1 or 2 characters and just intimidate the whole board with 6 cost Recaro and Dragon Skull, and then it would just have a free path to victory. But it was much quicker on power gain, but less aggressive.
This was the
Right,
version
right.
you played for the World Cup.
Yeah, for the Swiss rounds of World Cup, and it was something that was so when I went to nationals last year, I took Knights of the Hollow Hill, but a very different version of what was popular, the one that was popular from Germany. Um, I was talking to Storm a lot, Storm Humbert, with a different version. I didn't like the opening of Unexpected Delay. I just wanted to be more aggressive, and it just backfired on me. I had a bad tournament, and I had started working on a Tarxi of Blood by then, and I should have brought it to the Canadian Nationals. And when I was selected for the World Cup, I was just like, I know I'm taking this. I know how to play it. I know how to counter the meta. It was Barakohar was already very good, but it was a good deck to counter it because it was so aggressive. It was running like 2 or 3 bloody Arax. It was running Queen's Guard. It was running Tokar to stop the power rush from other decks as well. So it was already very good. And I actually went 5-0 in the World Cup with a Targ Seal of Blood before the Targ box. So it was a very good deck.
Absolutely. Um, yeah, tell us about your world's testing.
Yeah. So Worlds testing was pretty weird for me because I was gone in on vacation for 3 weeks in Hawaii, right before Worlds. So I had started my testing like I think I started in November when the box was released, knowing very well that I might get hit by restricted list, but I knew I was going to play Tarxi of Blood no matter what. And I kept telling Alejandro, like, I'm on Tarxi of Blood. I don't care. Like, whatever happens, I'm going to find a way to make it work. So I started testing in November when the box dropped. I had a prime in Ottawa, so I made the whole 5.5 hour drive to Ottawa for a prime, and I was able to go undefeated. The night before, I remember talking to Alejandro because he had played against some Lanny Shadows at Stolic, and I was wondering how to beat it. And so we discussed a few changes to the deck. I was not sold on the box Recaro at first. I switched it the night before even I never tried testing the box Recaro. I like the other one so much because of the power gain and the intimidate and everything. But I still decided to try it. And I remember the first thing I did after winning the event is I sent a message to Alejandro and I'm like, I want three of these guys.
Yeah. That was a really funny moment. I remember it because you took some convincing. You're like, you know what, I'll do it, almost just to appease me,
Yeah.
and I'll test it in this prime, and then after the tournament, he's like, I want three, dude. I was like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. So he,
And at the time, I wasn't convinced, and of course, as we know from episode one, we ended up taking three Recaro in our deck too.
yeah, exactly. So what happened is that every time I would get blood of my blood in my hand, he was the first target I wanted it from blood of my blood before Jogo and before Kotho for the simple reason I only had one and I wanted to see him every game. And he was just so clutch at getting cards out of the hand with a 2 entry claim as well. So you're already removing three cards from hand, which is just insane value for a four coster. And if you're able to get the entry claim right after.
Absolutely. So you've managed to talk for like 3 minutes after I asked you this testing question. You never even mentioned what I really wanted to know was who
Yeah.
did you test with?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna come up to. Um, so I told Alejandro about my plan of, well, first of all, playing Tarsi of Blood, but also since I know I'm going on vacation, I was like, I don't have any testing partners up in Canada. I have Michael Cito, but he's in Montreal, and we don't always have the time to play. So I'm like, I'm interested in testing with you guys from the NorCal if you're if you want and if everyone wants as well. So uh, and it was pretty cool, man. Everyone accepted me. I was the only one outside of NorCal, if I'm not mistaken,
That's right.
and so we just started testing games. And even while I was on my vacation, my girlfriend was getting ready for a night out or something. I was like hopping onto my phone, getting some messages in, trying to see. Like I was following the meta even during my trip. I was like, I'm going to Worlds. I'm not gonna like take all this time off from work after just taking vacation, 3 weeks vacation, and then just go punt it in Worlds. So I was pretty invested in it, and but like I said, I was waiting to have the perfect time where I wasn't busy or anything. I wasn't taking my phone out during vacation, obviously. So, but I was following the meta, and then I remember waking up one morning, the restricted list dropped, and with the time difference, I was late to it. So I wake up one morning, I see that Kotho isn't hit, nothing is hit from Tarxi of Blood. Um, so as soon as I got back home, I remember I just started grinding games with people from NorCal, trying to find ways to like get better with the deck, see what the new meta is going to shake up to, and took the deck to Worlds.
Yeah, so there we have it, folks. Really, the only reason that I wanted to have this podcast was to steal some glory from Francis and bring it over to NorCal. Really,
Ah, they
uh,
deserve some glory for sure, man. It was a
no,
blast.
yeah, no, it was really great having you. You're right that you were the only non NorCal person, but that was just this season. Like it, we've definitely had outside of NorCal testers with us, like LGB tested with us for a good while actually. Um, before he stopped playing, really. So yeah, it was a pleasure having you. Everybody was super excited to have you, and of course, we are very happy to see you end up victorious. That was really cool.
Yeah, it was. What was fun about it? It was, I didn't go to Worlds expecting to win, so just meeting you guys over the weekend, and not like, yes, I got to meet you guys and everything, but the whole testing house I got to meet as well. I got to meet Alex like before we played in the finals as well. I knew who CT and Jess were because they came up to Canadian Nationals at 1 year, and CT actually comboed me round one once. So
Yeah,
yeah.
sorry about that.
But yeah, getting to meet like even the uh, I was for a while I was playtesting with Daryl, Storm, and Austin. We just had a targ group where we bounce a bunch of targ decks around, mostly Storm. If you know Storm, he likes to test a bunch of decks for fun. So it was like just good to meet everyone that I talk to online and get to hang out and even get to meet some people I had never talked to before. That was the best part of the event, and just winning it all was just cherry on top. But the people made it so much fun. And even just when Alejandro got like, I was talking with some people, Alejandro got to me and he says he's hugging me from behind. I don't even know who it is. It's the first time I actually see him in person, right?
uh, you know, I hadn't met you before. And I was like, I think this is Francis, and then I did it. And I was like, God, I really hope this is Francis.
It's hard to miss. I'm just a tall
Sure.
guy.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a pleasure meeting you, man. Yeah, and hanging out the whole weekend. Yeah, I mean that's kind of always the thing at these tournaments, right? That I mean, we all loved playing the game, but mostly like hanging out with everybody and talking to everybody and meeting everybody that you play with online is really the best part of these things.
Yeah.
Yeah, you say that you haven't, maybe gone to as many tournaments as you'd like, but I mean, shit, man, you only played like 30 less games on Jousting Pavilion than me, so don't sell yourself short. You get around, But yeah, this being your first Worlds event, obviously an amazing finish. What were your big takeaways outside of winning the tournament on the experience, whether it be sort of from a competitive standpoint of a tournament this size, or maybe just about your experience in playing against people from around the world. What were sort of your big takeaways from the event outside of winning? Obviously, we know that's the
Yeah.
number one.
So I remember leaving when I left work. I worked with one of my good buddies, and I told him like, I'm gonna get fucked. I'm on the hard day, and I'm like, but at the same time, I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, well, I've played all these people online. I just never played in person, and I started thinking that I could actually making day two was not that hard with the deck that I was playing. I still had to play well, but it wasn't that hard. And then I get paired against Chris Schoenthal round one, and I'm just like, he's on Stark Fealty, flips over Winterfell and Recon, and I'm like, yeah, that's my world's tournament right there.
Uh,
Sad. So, but the good part, it was competing, like competing the whole weekend, even in the Laughing Tree event, even it was for fun. I was playing Barrack Ohor. I never played that deck. It was a solid deck. I just wanted to know like how it played more, since like I said, since I was on vacation, I grinded a lot of games when I got back, but I didn't get to test any other decks other than Dark Sea of Blood. So I wasn't fully sure about how good Barrack Ohor was other than playing against it. So I wanted to know what it was. So I took it to the Laughing Tree, got to play against a bunch of good players. Melee was fun, got to meet a lot of people. I'm just the social aspect of the whole weekend was just the best part. And playing against I mean, usually people who go to Worlds are some of the top players. So getting to play most of the top players in the world was a very fun experience as well.
Now, do you have any previous experience in card games before Thrones, or was Thrones your
Throne's my
first
first.
love? Or-
Throne's my first love. I've played, like most kids. I've played Pokemon when I was a kid, but never played seriously. So yeah, Thrones was very much my first competitive card game.
Yeah, I have to say, watching you the whole weekend and then eventually playing you in the finals, I was very impressed with your technical play. I thought, people often say that, oh, if you play exclusively on the Iron Throne, you're going to develop bad habits, this, that, and the other. But perhaps anecdotally at the very least, I think you're proof that really just playing a lot is really the most important things when it comes to sort of honing your ability in Thrones and card games in general. So um and that being said, I'm a little curious to talk about the actual list, since we did end up playing such a close list. I believe we were only 2 cards different ultimately.
Yeah, two
Um,
cards different.
what for you going into the last few days before deck submission? What were the big card what were the big questions that you wanted to try to answer? What were the last minute changes for you?
Actually, the night that we sent the list, I did make two changes. I wasn't sold on either Hago or Algo. I don't remember which one because I had uh, Algo. I wasn't sold for the lack of summer plots, but he did have the green icon that I wanted in my deck. And Hago was just underwhelming. But at the same time, he has the trait, he has the cost, and two icons that are very good. So I decided to put them back. I had two Iron Thrones in my list for a long time. I know you guys tested it. I was one of the person that kept pushing it to Alejandro, like this is good. This was a good card, and I just realized it's a reaction card, and that's not what we wanted to do with the deck. You just want to put pressure, and I had I decided to put back one of the Blood Riders that I had removed, and I decided to put a Drogon in. So I wasn't on Drogon. I was against having Drogon in my deck for so long, and I was just like, if I draw him and I'm able to play him, he just changes the game. Other than being able to not play him with the womb or with the overwhelming numbers, but being able to marshal him or even ambush him during a mid challenge just changes the game so much. Uh, for his reaction of being able to burn through dupes. So I decided to add him without playtesting, but I've played so much Stark before that I was confident that he was going to be good. I only got him once in the whole event though. So I can't say how good he was in the deck since I didn't get to see him much. Um,
That is kind of the nature of playing a singleton copy of a card. I can say that we also played a Drogon, and it was actually pretty critical. I remember now I was telling the story of my game with Reinhardt in the last episode, and I think I was misremembering some things, and after reflection I remember now that I did flip the Vanquished on that turn, and I had a market, so I had 6 gold, and on my counterattack I was able to ambush the Drogon and then play the Kotho, the Masande. I mean, and it was just such a huge counterattack.
and
Um,
that's on his sneak attack turn, right? So he couldn't intrigue it
exactly,
away.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
So, I mean, Drogon obviously had its issues, but it just felt so swingy in those games where you were able to trigger it.
yeah.
And I agree that the Hago was easily the worst Blood Rider in the deck.
But
And
yeah,
and the Ago, we had cut the Ago for a while, but like you, we really valued that intrigue icon, and especially with the Blood of My Blood, it made its way back.
yeah, the blood of my blood is what made those two cards back into the deck where you might not need them for the abilities, but just having the body for cheap because blood of my blood you're usually going to have it for 1 or 2 gold, not the full three. And if you do pay the full three, you'll usually get an impact character like Jogo or Rakaro. But just having the icon, he gets a strength buff from the devoted blood riders. He has the power icon. He has a good strength. He's 4 cost. I mean, he's not the greatest, but he does what the deck does well. So, um,
What one other point that's like a bit niche, but it matters, is that against the bad matchup, right? The one matchup that we were really concerned about going in was the Lanny Shadows matchup.
yeah,
It's another, if you go first, which is really important. Um, the reason why the matchup is really bad, it's like it's one card, right? It's Robert Strong.
yeah,
Um, and they play at least two summer plots. And so if you can trigger his action before Robert Strong has a chance to come out and blow something up, like that actually ended up mattering, at least in our testing, was
yeah.
you know the the ability to use him before your guy dies. So that it's not big, right? Like we weren't running any summer plots, so we weren't getting any value out of him ourselves. But in the bad matchup, it actually mattered that his action could play around our worst card.
Yeah, that's what I saw as well with the Algo in the Shadows matchup. Michael Cito actually played uh, Lanny Shadows the whole time I was testing Sea of Blood. He was on Lanny Shadows. He was on Lanny Shadows during the World Cup. So he was like my testing partner for that matchup. So it helped him in some way to be better against the Dark Sea of Blood, but it did help me to see that matchup better as well. And yeah, the stand was one of the cards that like one of the effects that I valued the most in that matchup, which is one of the reason I had trouble cutting Queen's Guard, because if you remember, Alejandro, I was on Queen's Guard for a long
Yeah,
time.
yeah. You were on some weird stuff for a long time.
Yeah,
The only thing that we talked about after the test house started was like, dude, we tested your card, right? Like your card has been the Iron Throne, and I'm telling you, it's not good enough.
yeah,
Like it does not push the needle enough, so we're not on it. I recommend that you just put more threats
yeah.
in your.
And that's when I decided to cut it. I didn't cut it right away. I thought about it, and then the night we had
Yeah,
to
yeah. You
submit the
told
list,
me.
I
You
did.
told me right before you got to Minnesota. I think when you were submitting your deck list, you're like, all right, I'm trusting you on this one, and I'm gonna cut the Iron Thrones.
Yeah,
I was like, all right, but don't trust me on it. Like, make this your call because
yeah,
if
yeah.
you
I
hate it,
remember.
you're responsible for this.
Yeah, and for the blood deck, like we were, the full 7 cards were the same, right? And
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely,
that's
yeah.
correct.
and so the March, I think I slotted in March before Valor M. I was just tired of people setting up one big guy in front of me. I was like, this if I
Yeah,
yeah, if I play March, it's just game over. So
yeah. I
uh,
know. I know. We tested a game in those upcoming weeks where I played Barracohor,
yeah,
and like since I knew your deck and I knew Targ C, right? Like, I think I set up the Dupe Stannis Bodyguard 0 cost location, and it was like, well, if he slotted in, otherwise, like this is gonna be really tough for him.
It
Uh,
not only is it just like good to have to punish people, the greedy setups, but it's also just, it's good in aggro because
yeah,
you
yeah,
can
you're
use
curious.
it to
Yeah,
finish wiping the board after a big claim turn.
yeah.
You can't put to the sword of Stannis, so sometimes it's the best way to get rid of one. It's just I just really like it in both aggro decks and attrition decks alike. Not to mention the initiative. There were a lot of games where initiative mattered more than anything else, and so you are predicting your opponent's plots, and you just want something that you can, pretty assuredly say is going to allow you to go first. So I thought March to the Wall was excellent, and the Valor. I'm interested in your thoughts on the Valor, how you utilize the Valor in your games, because obviously you listened to the last episode, so you've heard sort of how we were utilizing it. But I'm interested in hearing how, if it was any different for you.
So it wasn't different. I just never had to use it the same way you guys did. The only game I could have done it was against Hano, but my hand was not good enough for me to do it. But I remember you mentioned last episode that you and Alejandro got a Skype call or Discord call. I don't remember which one it was.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and you discussed opening, like the opening of Valor for Lanny Shadows against Barracohor. And
yeah,
yeah, and I told Alejandro, I said, why don't we do the same thing with Sea of Blood? And he told me, yeah, I just got off the phone with Alex, and that's what we discussed a bit. And I had a prime, so I got back from my trip on Friday, the Friday before Worlds, and the following day, I had a prime in Montreal, and crazy like I am, I just did the drive right away, and I decided, I had the exact same plot deck I had at Worlds, I had in Montreal. There was no Barra cohort, so I was sad to not test it there, but it just did so much work. There was one game against Night's Watch Valyrian still where he had 3 stall plots, and on plot 4, he had Three Finger Hob, Clytus, and none of it was protected. and I just went to town with Valor M and just swung the game around because of it. So I just never had at Worlds. I never had the chance to do it, but it was there for it.
Yeah, I think I did the math. I ended up opening Valor in the tournament 4 times, which just is a lot when you
Yeah.
consider that, I only played 12 games.
Yeah, I don't know why I just never had to. Maybe it was the way I was like the setups I had were more character centered than location centered, and not having Kotho in hand earlier or things like that matters a
Yeah,
lot.
I think
That
we
doesn't
definitely
matter to me.
expected I think we definitely expected the times in which you'd need to Valor or want to Valor on turn 1 to be much less than they ended up being. So it's possible that it was just, kind of the way the games went and it wasn't actually that
Yeah, that's fair.
imperative.
Yeah. I definitely thought about it in my game against. So I played Barracore top 8 and top 4 against Ryan Wood. His setup was just trash, so I couldn't, because my setup was Plaza of Pride, Womb, and like the King's Road, and he just had two, like Angie the Archer and another Chud. So I'm like, I'm not going to VM that because it's not worth it. But had he had a big guy with no dupe, I would have just Valor. Like my setup was basically Valor. I'm gonna Valor you right away.
Did you remember do you remember what he opened against you?
I think Ryan opened. He might have opened King Plot. I think it was King Plot. To limit, yeah, I think it was King Plot because I didn't trigger Womb that turn.
Interesting.
Either King Plot or Barring, but it's one or the other. Because I only had 2 characters, I couldn't trigger Sealed Blood that turn. Probably couldn't Kothol that turn, but he like Ryan just it sucked for him. He just drew nothing all game long, and the only time he drew something was on his "You Win or You Die" and couldn't play anything. And then against Hano, he had Undo Bob, but I had a forecaster. I think I had Ricaro on board, a Devoted Blood Rider, and then a 1 cost location or something like that, or a 0 cost location. And my redraw wasn't good enough for me to Valor, but might have been the good call. But still ended up being able to win it. So
Well, and that's one of the things that makes the Sea of Blood deck so resilient is that you have all these plots and these like technology cards that are meant for the specific matchup, but outside of maybe a few cards, um there's really so many ways that the Sea of Blood deck attacks you, you know, and that may sound odd because it is a very linear deck in that it's primarily motivated to make military challenges against you. But, if they play Barring the Gates, that doesn't prevent, you know, 2 or 4 claim challenges. Um, it doesn't prevent Put to the Sword, these things. So that was what we found in testing was people would, they would pack all these answers expecting that it would really change the matchup for them, but ultimately they couldn't really deal with the claim plus the Sea of Blood trigger, um, you know, and also just deal with the tempo that Targ is able to provide, whether it be from Kotho or from Womb, etc. There really were only a few things that like absolutely stopped the deck cold in its tracks. Parlay being probably the best one. So I think that's just why the deck was so good for the tournament and is just such a force in the meta right now.
yeah, and like you said, it the agenda makes it a priority to win the military challenge, and the deck is based around it. But the green challenge is just so important in the deck as well. Just trying to poke away some cards that could hurt you, or even do the power challenge if you think Barra's running privileged position. Just sequencing it right was the deck is linear, but you have to play it right to make it work. Um,
Yeah, things aren't always as simple as people make them out to be. That's 100% true.
Yeah, I could have played. I feel like I could have played a lot better. As far as like, especially from a sequencing standpoint, even after the whole week, I still found myself, during the tournament, uh, taking lines that were not the most ideal ultimately. So it's one of those things that you know I think that you clearly showed a mastery of the deck, and it's evidenced obviously by you winning, but it seems to have come as a result of a lot of dedicated time spent learning the deck, whereas some of us just or kind of winging it more or less, picking it up after a week. So it pays to have put that time and effort into a deck. Obviously, there are consequences to just sort of like, you know, there are consequences, both positive and negative, obviously. But having dedicated yourself to a faction and to a specific deck for a period of time, really paid dividends for you.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of the Dothraki theme, and I was even trying to. I told Sam at Sam Bratz at the event that I was trying to recreate his Tard Crossing, the Power Rush deck, but there's so many decks like you guys mentioned in the testing house where it just folds the Targ Sea of Blood. So that I
Yeah.
was like, if I'm gonna play Targ, I'm gonna play Targ Sea of Blood. I'm not gonna play anything else. It's just stupid. Targ Cohort just folds. Everything folds to it. So there's
Look,
maybe
the stars just aligned. I mean,
yeah,
you had been playing Sea of Blood for the previous few months, and like you said, you're a Targ loyalist more or less.
yeah,
It was just the right time, but that's that's fine. You just got to take advantage when the when the time is right.
yeah, exactly.
100%. I mean, same for me. I'm not sure that my loyalty has been as strong as yours, but I've definitely played a lot of Targ in my day. So I was happy to go out on the last official event playing Targ.
So you've won the world championship. What's next?
I'm just gonna keep playing. There's nothing next. There's just gonna keep doing what I always did. For sure, people invite me to tournaments much more than before. But I have to talk with the player council eventually to create a card design, but haven't thought about it much other than probably going to be something represented in Targ because I
It's
love
got to
them
be
so much.
it's got to be some braided boy, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Probably going to be someone on a horse. But
Nice.
yeah, I'm just gonna keep playing. I mean, I joke a lot about not having a local meta, but I still have a couple of players who play more casually that do go to events, but they're not super intense. But I still get to play with them every now and then. I'll still hop on Iron Throne and get some games in. Uh, but other than that, nothing changes, which is why I still feel like I have trouble accepting that I won. Is that nothing changes, right? You just go back home, you play cards again. More people know me, but that's it. I was just playing a super good deck and that I've been playing for a long time, and I'll keep playing Targ. I'll keep playing other factions as well, but nothing changes.
So I know we've talked at length about the at least I have talked at length about the my games during the tournament, but I'm interested in from your perspective, the final game. Um, Obviously we know each other's decks. You have a great hand. What did you think from your perspective? What did you think of the way that the game played out? Have you gone back and watched the game at all on the stream?
I probably watched the game 5 times, and it feels it feels the same way watching it as how I was feeling during it. Um, I think you were unlucky in the cards that I drew from the get go. I drew, like I told you, I drew the first 4 cards were Kotho, Braided Warrior, Womb, Marini's Market. I knew I was keeping. I just looked at the 3 other cards, and like you said, I snapped get the hand, knowing it was gonna put pressure on you. Either I have the King's Road or I have a monster hand, and I knew when you played King's Road, I knew I was losing the initiative, but I still wanted to play Vanquish because I needed the claim, I needed the gold. I could hit you back harder, and just in case you got greedy and not played a Vanquish. I was like, maybe he's gonna be greedy, knowing he has the initiative, and think I'm not gonna play the Vanquish. Um, and then I redrew into Aegon, and I knew how my turn was gonna be right away. And from that point on, all I told myself was, unless you fuck it up, you're gonna win this game. And it's not because you were playing bad. It's just the cards just drew perfectly for me.
Yeah, I do think I don't think I mentioned it on the first episode, but what ended up being like sort of a crucial part of that turn actually was the lay siege on the Plaza of Pride,
Yeah,
because it really hampered my ability to push Drogo's ability, and really put a lot of pressure. I mean, I think if I have the Plaza of Pride, there's a chance the turn ends in more or less a stalemate, because you're forced to commit a lot to the defense of the second military challenge, in order to save your Womb of the World, or at the very least, you may two claim me, but you may not trigger Sea of Blood on the backswing. You know, it's things that I think I understand. You know, obviously you had a very good hand,
yeah.
but I think there are different ways that the game could have been played. At least from my perspective, I feel that way.
I will
Um,
say that I think the late siege was obviously big, but with hindsight, knowing that the devoted blood rider was the womb of the world trigger, I think he actually would have been like, had he not had late siege, I think he's even in a better position than if he had, because he plays the Plaza of Pride instead, and now he's got instead of kneeling out your 5 coster, your 5 strength guy, he stands his 6 strength guy. So
oh sure, so you had a
Yeah.
Plaza of Pride in hand at the
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
I had it from the get go. I only played it like turn 4. I never had the goal for it. I always had the goal for something better. Um, but like Alejandro just mentioned, the devoted blood rider was actually much better than people thought. When I flipped it, I was a bit upset, and I'm like, he actually like boosts Kotho enough to defend the second military challenge because
Yeah,
I
no,
had
it
all the
actually
late
was
siege.
exactly. You know, I
Yeah,
think yeah, the devoted blood rider was fine. I mean,
yeah,
honestly, like I was really hoping for the complete whiff, and we came close, but
yeah,
not close enough.
and I think the turn that you played king in the north, and I was able to fetch my king attachment.
oh yeah,
Um,
that was big.
yeah,
I love the play. I was like, oh, he's gonna go grab this gifts, and then like I thought that was gonna take away Alex's ability to do it at all, and then you did it. I don't know if you weren't thinking about it, Alex, or if you just didn't care about the cost there, but uh, Francis being able to play gifts
so
during military.
so what
That you
happened is that turn he did the intrigue first, and I defended with Kotho, so I had no other standing military icon when he did the military. So if probably his thinking is, if I whiff, he still gets it. Um, that's how, and I even told Alex during the game. I don't know if he heard me, but he does the intrigue. I full block with Kotho, and I just look at him and I say, "It's time to gamble." And I'm like, the womb is gonna be a gamble trigger, but I had to do it.
yeah, it's just not that big of a gamble though. I mean,
No, no, but if
Womb
you
and
whiff,
Glyph.
if you whiff hard and he gets the trigger, the Sea of Blood, it just unfolds the whole game right there.
Sure, 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 sure. What I'm
But
saying is that the gamble is like Womb is like 90+% chance
yeah,
of hitting.
exactly.
It's not a huge gamble. Just the stakes are high, sure, but the percentage that you're gonna whiff entirely is not.
No, I think in retrospect, it was very likely a mistake on my part to give you the opportunity to play the gifts, but I had my back against the wall a bit at that point, so
Yeah,
I had to kind of, it was a bit of an angle, hoping that you wouldn't that you would forget basically that you could play it, obviously, but
Uh,
it
eh,
it was a greedy play on my part. But I think from my perspective, it was, you know, it was maybe the type of risk I had to take in that scenario. I'm not entirely sure.
that's probably fair, right? Like you're pretty far behind at that point. You have to play to your outs, which is just like him having a very low percentage hit on a Womb trigger.
yeah, and I
And then
think I hit Jogo on that one, which got me to be able to play him next turn, which was just uh, yeah, I played Jogo the next turn on my furry. We double furry, but I think the biggest mistake Alex made was getting the power on Cal Drogo, which put him ahead on power.
Yeah,
That
that was
was
also in there.
yeah. That's what I was trying to make sure I was never over you on power. So it's either a coin flip or I get initiative when we're gonna be tied on initiative.
And
Uh,
this is another example of just, your experience with the list. I think it just led to cleaner play. Like yes, you had a better hand than me from the get-go, but I also just think you played the game better than me, and so, are very deserving of the victory
yeah,
ultimately.
I think the finals was unlike the semifinals. The finals was a clean game from my end.
Absolutely.
And I also had to play Kevin round 3 in the Swiss and Tom in the top 64 games. So I did play two of like twice against the same decks, and I never won initiative in any of the games on turn one, and was able to win all 3 games. So, like you mentioned in the first episode, winning initiative wasn't always the key in the matchup, and I knew that going into the finals, that I had won 2 games without initiative and didn't care for the King's Road as much as I cared for the jumping effect. So having two right from the get go was key.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it,
we
it did.
definitely oversimplified
Absolutely. Yeah.
the go first you win thing. I think mostly because we didn't do that many mirror tests in the testing house. And like the few that we did were actually decided pretty quickly.
Well,
Like,
that's the thing, is we definitely played lots of mirrors, but I think we hung our hat on, oh, these are getting decided by the initiative, and then we didn't really try and readjust our game plan, where, in retrospect, it seems obvious now that the tempo was just such a more important matter in the mirror.
absolutely, yeah.
Having the tempo of a Womb or a Kotho, you know just or Aegon even, obviously, just were more important ultimately. And you know it's it's possible too that, if we want to continue to talk about how poorly I played the final, um even with, because I think I set up double duped Kotho.
Yeah, that
You
was
did,
huge
yeah.
for me as well.
Like, I think that was just a mistake. I'm not really
I think
sure how I should have set up alternatively, but losing the tempo from being able to just like jump the Kotho into play, and maybe having like a 6 drop or something in play instead, or
So you're
even,
probably with the hand that you had would be Cal, setting up Cal and Braided Warrior.
right, and foregoing the King's Road. But that's the problem, is that I was tunnel visioned based
Yeah,
on our
yeah,
playtesting
that's huge. So
on the initiative at matter.
yeah, I didn't realize that that was the other option for setup because you know,
but then I just Valor, right?
Sure,
sure that's a
but
big
I still
game
have
though.
Kotho, and I'm
Yeah,
flipping 582. Like, I'm not entirely
and you're losing
sure.
your room there.
Yeah, but
That's
Right.
I still
huge.
have Womb and Kotho.
You still have Umakotho, that's for
Yeah,
sure. But I could even then take a cheeky line of, well, yeah, you're going to Valor, so now maybe I flip my return here, or
or
something
March.
exactly. So there are just, I think that game can get played out in a lot of different ways
Yeah,
from my perspective. And so
Kingdom
of
of
course,
North.
right, exactly. There are a lot of options there, and I kind of priced myself into trying to blow your Womb of the World up. And like we talked about after the match, the way in which, you kept that hand really indicated to me that you had a Kotho,
Yeah,
and I wasn't able to sort of step back from that and make an informed decision, with the knowledge that I could guarantee that I was going first. And so I think that was definitely a mistake on my part. But, obviously, um it's a long day, and I was very fortunate to get where I was. So no complaints on my end. But it's just that, it's just kind of how I am. I like to go back and sort of think about how I could have played better or differently in scenarios like that. But it was a blast being under the lights, obviously, and super happy that someone who brought the correct deck to the tournament won, obviously. Um,
Yeah, it was the right call. It was the right call.
Yeah, I can't tell you how excited I was when three of the people that I tested with were in the top four. I was like, this is better than me being there because holy shit, that's so fucking cool, dude.
Yeah, I almost fucked it up against Hano though.
You did, you
Yeah,
did. I,
like
I was real nervous for you while I was getting on my fucking plane.
yeah, when people come see you after the game and say how much did you pay Hano to not flip barring, I'm like, I didn't even think about that. I felt bad for him, but I like the first turn where we didn't calculate the strength properly, and I went back to see the game, and I clearly hear myself say five. I lose 5-5, so I wasn't thinking about the devoted blood rider. Uh,
Yeah,
there's a lot of pressure in those games, right? So
absolutely.
you make those silly mistakes, and everyone missed it. I was looking at the cast to make sure everyone on Twitch missed it as well, and everyone on Twitch did miss it. So it's like it wasn't only me, it wasn't only Hano, the judge. It was except someone in the stands. Everyone missed it.
so if the next world championship is at Stalik, are you going to defend your title?
I would like to go. Um, Being able to go is another story. I never know it. I think it's in November, right?
It's in
Yeah.
November, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. For me, work is pretty busy around those time of the year, around November, December. Got to make it money wise as well, but definitely want to try to make it for sure. Always like Alex Hines always sold me on going to a castle and playing cards and getting drunk is a good idea.
Right. Well, and that's completely hypothetical, right? I mean, who knows where worlds will be? It just definitely seems like that's an idea that a lot of people have been putting out there. I know I'd like to go to Stalik for my first time. Alejandro, you've been twice
Twice.
now,
Twice, I
I
think.
have, yeah.
and
Yeah,
seems
I
like
had
you've
a
got
blast,
nothing but good things to say
for
about it.
sure, for sure. The only thing that I would say is that I regret staying up as late as I did the night before the joust, because I was absolutely wiped this last year. But that's not a fault of Stalik. I was having a blast playing 1.0 rental until the next day when I just couldn't function as a proper human being.
Yeah, definitely want to go to Starlake and play cards and enjoy being with everyone over there. But uh, we're gonna see in November if it's possible. Well, before because I have to register before, but definitely want to go.
Yeah, you guys are. I have. I had kind of conceded that I wasn't going to be able to go this year, and then you guys keep talking about it. I'm like, well, well,
Yeah, when do tickets go on sale? Because I
look
haven't
at you.
decided. Yeah, I really want to go, and I especially I would say the chances of going for me are probably going to be increased if they do name it the World Championship, because if they don't, I feel like, oh, maybe I can go in 2021, but it's hard to say. I mean, we know it's happening on the same level this year at the very least.
It seems
You
like a
know,
no-brainer, right? Like,
you would honestly think.
because it'd be really hard to come up with another event, right? Like the everything's still being organized, so that'll be whoever ends up being the maester of tournaments. I don't know what that maester title is, because I'm not into any of the fluff. Um, but that's got to be a priority. So maybe they can make something happen before then. But actually, it'd be pretty nice to have it in Europe, anyways. So
Yeah, I don't
uh,
see how they don't do it in Europe or at
Yeah,
Starlink. I don't see
I
it. Like
think
that's a
you
major
do it
slap in the face, right?
right.
You
Yeah, I
don't
mean,
do
you
it
do it. You do it over there. You guarantee like a big turnout
as
for
long as
your.
they want it, like
Right.
if for some reason the Stali people don't want it there, then that's another story. But
Well, but even if they don't want it at Stalik, I think it still makes sense to have the event in Europe, just
oh yeah,
because
oh yeah, 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 yeah. That's fair.
I
Absolutely.
mean, and I would hope like maybe the tournament organizers at Stolic don't want it to be a permanent thing, but at least the first year after the FFG sort of passes off the organizational torch, so to speak, it would be nice to have it somewhere where we already know there's going to be a large turnout. I think that's the idea for me.
All right. Let's look up flights.
So one more thing I wanted to ask you, Francis, while we've got you on here. What are your feelings towards a potential change to the restricted list, particularly with Sea of Blood in mind? Obviously, if you had your druthers, maybe nothing would go on there. But if you were a designer, what would you add to the restricted list to sort of even things out, so to speak?
So if I'm gonna add things from Targ Sea of Blood, I'm also gonna hit Barra Cohort, and I'm also gonna hit Lanny Shadows. Um, the main reason is I think if there's no aggro decks in the meta, passive power gain or even just like Targ Cohort with a tower of attachments on Danny just runs away with the meta if there's nothing to keep it in check. Um, so people are very high on Kotho, and I agree Kotho is very good. Um, I don't know how you hit Targ Sea of Blood without hurting other decks, but Kotho is probably the easiest one. I would not hit the core Drogo. I think it's a bad choice.
I agree for what it's worth.
If you're gonna hit like those good six costers, you're gonna start hitting them all over the place. And Core Rob has been in the like a strong card in a strong like in every start deck plays Core Rob or almost every start deck, and it's not even discussed as being hit by the restricted list. So I don't see how you hit that when Stark has been winning Stolic 3 of the 4 years. Kotho is definitely above curve though.
Do you feel like restricting Kotho,
And
like let's say the restricted list is just Kotho? Do you think that that evens things out, or do you think then Cohort and Shadows are just too good? Like they're just that much better than Sea of Blood.
I mean they're that much better. If you don't have anything aggressive in the meta, I think
So
anything.
you think restricting Kotho kills Sea of Blood?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, because I guess that's my. I personally think a heavy-handed approach to the restricted list now would be a bad thing, especially with Tark Sea of Blood, because like you said, Tarxia Blood is checking a bunch of decks, right?
Yeah,
But it's probably about way too far above the rim, to use a, a colloquialism. But
yeah.
it's I think that um, eliminating the deck from the format would create other imbalances, like you said. So it's for me, it's about finding the right tweak to to sort of bring Sea of Blood down just a notch. And I honestly think Kotho might, be the answer, but it seems like people are more interested in the heavy-handed approach.
I mean, I can see banning Sea of Blood if it wasn't for all the other decks that would just go up in popularity and just be way too good. There's always going to be a deck or a few decks that are better in the meta.
Of
Uh,
course.
so you can never stop that. You take one away, another one pops up. It's always going to be like that. Um,
It is kind of the flaw of using the restricted list um as a means to diversify the metagame. I think ideally, uh, we'd we'd be designing new cards to do that to do that, and maybe rotating cards out. I don't know. That seems like that hasn't been talked about at all in all of this transitionary process. Is FFG was eventually going to rotate cards out of the game, and we basically got right up to the point where that would be happening, and I haven't heard that discussed at all. So I'm interested to see, what the next few weeks and months bring as far as, development, because it's where do you guys land on the rotation stuff? I mean, would that be something you'd be interested in seeing?
I am.
Yeah, definitely. I yeah, I'm not sure that I've played a game very seriously that rotated. Like I play, I guess I play Magic pretty damn casually, so that doesn't really work for me. I do play Eternal, and the format that I play there is the one that doesn't rotate, so it'll be a change for me. But I think um, I guess I'd have to look at the first cycle of cards or the first two cycle of cards and see what's even getting rotated, what's even getting played at this point.
But even without rotating like forever some cards, you can just rotate in and out some cards during a certain amount of time. Like for a 3 months or 4 months period, you like remove part of the first and second cycle, but not all of it. You make some decisions to keep some of the like of the some of the traits that are together in some of the cycles together. You want to keep some drown gods together, or some dothrakis together, or whatever the traits are, some Rolor together, and you don't have to remove it completely from the game for the full like for the rest of the game, um, but you can remove them for one cycle at a time, like for a certain period of a time, one cycle. Um, I would be interested in seeing that approach as well. Um, I was looking at the deck list from my Tarxia of Blood, and you were mentioning what I would restrict. I would actually restrict King in the North. I think that card is pretty good in that deck and pretty good in Barakohor as well. I would try to hit the top three decks to me were Lightning Shadows, Barakohor, and Tarxia of Blood. So I would probably try to hit those three the most.
Yeah, I like restricting King of the North. I also like a restriction on Return to the Fields.
Yeah.
Um, I think those two plots in particular keep a subsection of decks and strategies down. Um, but then we have to discuss like where does things they do for love fit into Thrones, because obviously if
Yeah,
any amount of that is incorporated, I think that gives a big shot into the arm to all the attrition decks. So maybe we don't want to get rid of Return to the Fields, and we don't want
yeah,
to get rid of King in the North, because if those decks become oppressive and a huge problem, then you're gonna need stuff to combat them. So it's a big thing. It's going to be difficult, and I don't begrudge any of the potential people who will be in charge of all that. I wish them the best, but it's going to be an uphill battle. But it's I'm interested to see where things go. It seems almost impossible to me that there won't be some major changes on the horizon. I know that UK War had their draft this last week, and they're choosing not to make any changes, which I thought was quite interesting. And that it sounds like Thrones War, the USA Thrones War, the SoCal Thrones War, original Thrones War is going to make quite a few changes. So we'll see. I guess they can kind of use those events as experiments or whatever. But yeah, it should be interesting.
yeah, yeah. That's I'm a little bit nervous about all the changes. I mean, we talked to you a little bit earlier about introducing cards that would kind of uh, replace or do what a restricted list would kind of want to do, which feels like what the things we do for love would do. Like it would shake it up. It would be if you make everything legal, it make the game kind of it changed the game right entirely from what it looks like now. Um, and instead, there's a half incorporation and a restricted list, so it's going to be even wilder. Um, and it's a little nerve wracking to think about having to do that much preparation for a single tournament.
Yeah, it's daunting to consider adding everything. They kind of left us with a weird dilemma in that regard, where we have these cards, but we don't really know if we should be using them or not.
We don't really know if we want them. Like, thanks,
Right.
FFG.
I
But
did.
the
Last
I didn't even buy the pack, so
I haven't bought it either yet. But the inverse is strange too, though, in that we, until the players committee, or the conclave as it's being called now, is up and running, and I envision that to take some time to get going. There's going to be this lull in new content, and so people are going to be chomping at the bit to try to incorporate things we do for love. And it'd be nice if somebody could just come down from the heavens and tell us how to make the right decision, but alas, we'll be left to make mistakes on our own probably. So
Yeah.
I'm
It's gonna
prepared.
be daunting, but pretty exciting too. Like the war format, working together with people is always the best part of the format. So getting to do so with such a dynamic change, it's going to be uh, fun but stressful. I think for me because I don't like to perform poorly at things, and so it sounds like a lot of work. But
I
we'll
just
see.
I just don't want them to make it a 1.0 game. I'm pretty sure 1.0 was good, but it's a different game with a different cost curve. I don't want people to make it into a mix of 1.0 and 2.0.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah,
agree.
that's definitely a risk. Because it seems like, obviously they tried to balance out some of these things to, the 2 point design heuristics, but I'm not sure they really accomplished it ultimately. Um,
I mean, they were just cards that were left by Nate French from what I could see in the pamphlet that was with the card
Yeah.
the pack that came out. So not that it's bad, but they were not tested for the game for sure.
Yep. Exciting times ahead. Yeah, I have confidence that the people working on it will go for a long time and will do things even if they stumble sometimes, which we all do. So, do you guys have anything you want to talk about outside of Thrones?
I got some wisdom teeth taken out on Friday. That's a fun experience.
How are you feeling?
I feel all right. It was a weird weekend. Let's just say that, but I feel fine now.
It definitely is.
You said you were wrapping up your Pathfinder. Did that wrap up, or you just have a long session?
No, we're getting really close to the end of the campaign, so things are getting prolonged and protracted.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah,
yeah. My campaign's actually nearing. It's probably in the last 20%, which is kind of crazy because it's the first time we've ever gotten this far, and I don't know what to do with my hands. Things are getting crazy.
yeah, it seems to be a common theme among groups. But yeah, we've been like playing this same campaign for going on. Well, it's been over 3 years now, which is the longest I've ever played any
Yeah.
particular campaign. So I think people are ready for something fresh and something new, but we gotta finish it out, finish it out with style. So yeah, like I said, the sorry we didn't record yesterday. Things just kind of got out of hand with that. So
One thing that I'm super excited, actually. Uh, wait, did you want to add something there, Francis?
No, I was just asking. They've been playing for 3 years. That seems like a long campaign.
oh, it's insanely long. Yeah.
Yeah, that's that's long. That's long. Yes. Um, I was gonna say that Angela won the lottery for the Harry Potter and the Cursed Child on Wednesday. So we're gonna go see that. I'm gonna take a half day, go into
Nice.
San Francisco and watch this 5 hour long play split up into two parts, and I'm super excited. I've
Wow, it's 5 hours.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
insane.
it's like 2.5 hours, and there's two parts. One at 2 o'clock, one at 7 o'clock, something like that. Yeah, yeah, it's kind of crazy. We've been like super into like plays and musicals lately, and over the past few years, I like read all the like I'm super late to the Harry Potter thing, but but I dug it as I was doing it. Maybe 3 years ago, I read all the books. Um, and for some reason, we hadn't really considered this ninth. It's essentially book nine is you know, what they kind of pitch it as, and now we're finally gonna go see it, and I'm super excited. Like, we just found out on Saturday or Sunday, I don't know, that's when she won the lottery for it.
Hell yeah, that's
And
awesome.
Yeah, I can't. I'm like, I want to catch up. I want to remember everything that happened in all the books, which isn't really be a problem. But yeah, it's exciting.
Right on. How about you, Francis?
Um, I'm good. Like, just I did an escape room last weekend, so it's pretty fun to go to do something.
Did you
Yeah, go ahead.
did you escape?
Yeah, we escaped, but I was shit, man. So it's not the first time I go, but it was a scary one, and I'm super nervous. I don't watch horror movies and all that. And there was someone in the room with us for most of the time. And as soon as he was walking around me, I was just moving around. I'm like, just stay away from me, so I'm not gonna hit you by accident. Yeah, it was pretty funny. So we were two of my best friends and my girlfriend, and my girlfriend was the one with the bigger balls and the whole thing. she she was just going everywhere. She wasn't scared of anything, while the three of us were just looking at the people and being scared. So it was pretty fun. But yeah, we ended up getting out, not because of me. Yeah. Moral of the story: don't let a little girl with no face scream at you in closed doors. I don't want to go in my basement anymore.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on. Yeah, sorry it took us so long to get this thing orchestrated, but we finally got you in here. We should hopefully have the episode up in a couple days. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, Alejandro, you got any last words?
We love you.
Well, thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, no problem. And everybody, don't forget to check your reserve. Are we doing that? Is that a thing now? I don't know. I can't figure out if I like it or not,
We're like
but
ironically saying it, I think, at this point.
yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
It's kind of corny, and I'm just like a kind of a corny guy. So for
All
me to
right.
say that, it feels
It's a thumbs up for me.
All right. Well,
thumbs up.
goodbye, everybody. We'll talk to you next time.